Good afternoon, all, and welcome to FaceTime with Mike. Today, I have a guest that just recently went through a major procedure with his bio dad. The weird twist about this story is he didn't really know much about his bio dad when he first grew up. But today, I will let him introduce himself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Anthony Henderson. Glad to be here on the show today with Michael, and we're going to be talking about Breaking the Shell, a big initiative that I've been working on with my biological father.
So, Mr. Anthony, what exactly caused you to name this procedure and process through that you went through with your bio dad breaking the shell?
Yeah, so I listened to a lot of music. I was inspired by a song that Adeoye wrote and released called Breaking the Shell or Break the Shell. And the lyrics were, "Child, it's time to break the shell. Life's gonna hurt, but it's meant to be felt. You cannot touch the sky from inside yourself. A bird cannot fly until it breaks its shell." And it just reminded me that I had been living my life kind of enclosed and isolated, and that it was time to kind of come out of my shell. And that was the point at which I reached out to my biological father.
If you don't mind me asking, you said you didn't really know your bio dad growing up. At what age did you find out that you was adopted, if you don't mind me asking?
Yep, so I was 21 years old when my parents finally told me that I was adopted. I had no ideas before that, very little information, maybe some speculation, but nothing had ever been confirmed. And when I was 21, my parents told me because part of my biological family were about to reach out to me on their own. So they wanted to tell me before that actually happened.
Mm. Did you feel any mixed reactions, or was it kind of like you kind of was a little bit shocked, or how did you exactly feel when you first found out, if you don't mind me asking?
I think devastated is the first reaction because I grew up in a family where, we honored telling the truth. And so to be told at 21 years old that, the people you think are your parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, all these people are not really those people. I mean, they are because I was legally adopted, but in terms of biology and bloodline and things that are hereditary, they're strangers. So, it kind of was devastating to learn that, but it was also the start of a new beginning because I was going to be able to explore an entirely different life with new people that I would eventually meet.
Right. I don't physically know much about it, but I know my mother. She was physically adopted when she was a young age as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think she was 5 or 6. She has always told me. Mm-hmm. So I know that even though I consider my grandparents on my mom's side as my grandparents, I know they're not physically blood related to me. So I can definitely relate to your story with your bio dad, partially, at least on that perspective.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, also, what exactly pursued you even further to go find your bio dad? Like, what processes did you have to go through? Was it a really hard, tedious process, or?
It actually was kind of a stroke of luck. When I was told about my adoption, it was because my biological mother and brother, were trying to get in touch with me. The one missing piece in all of that was information about my father. So my mom gave me what she had, which was just his name and approximate age. And I kind of went on a search from there. And we contacted extended family members and friends of my biological mothers who may have had some idea. And the news wasn't very good. We thought that he might be addicted to drugs or alcohol. We thought that he might be homeless and living on the streets in New York. But whatever was going to be the case when I found him, I was prepared to deal with it. So luckily, one of the things we heard was that he might be working for the Transit Authority of New York. And I had a connection inside Transit that looked it up and realized he wasn't working there, but he had applied for a job. And his application was still on file, and that included his phone number.
Oh, wow.
And so I can't say who gave it to me because that would get the person in trouble. But I
understand.
did get the number and called it, and my biological grandmother answered the phone,
Oh, wow.
and that was the first connection. And then he called me back the next day.
So, so you feel, even though you wasn't physically connected, but you feel like he was still there, and you knew you was going to eventually find him. You didn't really have much of a doubt, or did you?
Well, I knew that I would find him. I didn't know what I would find. Like I had no information, so he could have been dead.
Right.
I didn't know that. Or he could have been homeless. I didn't know that. Fortunately, when I found him, he had been about a year or two clean of drugs and alcohol and had just started a new job and was getting his life together. So I met him at the right time in his life and in mine, probably.
Have you gone through any major experiences since you met him recently in your life? Have you done any major procedures or anything?
Yeah, I recently donated a kidney to him. He was on dialysis for the past 7 years. And I volunteered to do it a long time ago and had some preliminary testing done. But at that point, he was ill and his body wasn't physically able to undergo a transplant. But he has since gotten a little better. And so last year in 2014, in November, we had a kidney transplant procedure. So I donated a kidney to him, and we both have recovered and are doing well.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Um, my next question deals with a little bit more about the transplant. Like, I understand, did you say you volunteered correctly? Did I hear you correctly say you volunteered to help your dad?
I did. So, prior to a couple of years ago, we were pretty much estranged and we only talked or visited every few years. When he stopped through town about 6 or 7 years ago, he said he had just started dialysis. And I asked, was that because he needed a kidney? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, I'll get tested. And I think it kind of shocked him because I don't think he ever thought that I would volunteer for something like that or would be willing to, even if he had asked. I don't think he would have ever asked. So I did get tested at the time, but like I said, he wasn't physically able to receive the kidney. And so last year we revisited again, and it worked out.
Are there any specific events that you are going to do more with him, or is there anything that you are going to do to get to know him better, since you really didn't know for the first about 21 years?
Yeah. So over the last couple of years, what has helped our relationship grow closer is that I wrote him a letter, a very angry letter, where I pretended I was him writing myself. And so I wrote myself all the things I thought he should have said to me as my biological father and as a person worthy of his love, which he had not given me. And just a little bit of the backstory is that he was 18 years old. My biological mother was 16 years old when she got pregnant. And he basically was in the military trying to get his life together at that point unsuccessfully. Didn't want anything to do with me as his son. So he kind of walked away and was just gone, disappeared. Meanwhile, my biological mother was sent to Florida to have me, and that's where she met the family that she gave me to and where I was raised. Wow. So he, he was pretty much hands off all that time. And then when I showed up, it was not necessarily a surprise, but I think he was better equipped at this point.
Would you say you was more shocked of finding your father, or he was more shocked of finding that you found him?
Probably both. I think once I knew about him, it was important to me to fill that gap in my story and figure out who he was,
right?
And hopefully answer some questions for myself that I had been struggling with. And then I think for him, it was a full circle moment where, all these years ago, he walked away from his child. And so now here is this man standing in front of him, or talking to him on the phone and reintroducing himself. And, the story would proceed from there. So over the past couple of years, we've grown a lot closer. He responded to my letter by writing a letter to himself as if it were from me, saying the things that he thought I should have said. And then we started to make commitments. So really breaking the shell is about a three-phase approach to improving the troubled relationships in people's lives. And what I've learned is that troubled relationships only occur with people you care about, right? So if you don't really care about somebody, you don't really care if you are connected to people or not. But if you care about somebody, you really want there to be no trouble in the relationship, and you want to, if there is trouble, you want to resolve it as quickly as possible. So we, using our story, talked about, being connected as one thing that we needed to do, practicing forgiveness as the other thing we needed to do, and then healing through telling our story to others and creating that possibility for others. Right. So that's what Breaking the Shell is about.
Right. I don't know much about my grandfather. My grandfather, one of them died when I was 11 months old, as well as my step-grandfather. He died right before I was born in 1995. I was born in 1996. It was like I was right in the middle of both of them. Yep. So it was like I really didn't know much about him, but it's like with everything I heard through my dad's stories and like how much he knows about him, he said that in a way he did have a drinking problem, but not so much to the point where I guess I'm not going to say that your father was abusive or anything, but like how some people get drunk and they just go all sorts of ways. It's just hard to tell. You could get a wider range of different characteristics from people that drink or have drug problems. Yep. It just depends how addicted they are, how much they actually want to get this through their system, and just how much they go through it. So when I hear your story, I really can relate. Even though I don't much remember about them, I can know from people's stories in my family that I know how you feel and how you would feel in a sense.
Yeah, and my biological father was a hot mess. That's the language we use today, right, to describe him. He was addicted to alcohol and drugs. Any kind of drug would have done. He was, criminal, juvenile detention center kind of dude before his mom put him in the military to try to help, change his life. And he spent, a couple of years, I think, in the military and got out and returned to his old ways. So he lived that way for many years, probably 20 or more years, addicted to drugs. Yeah. So that's why there wasn't much hope of what I would find in terms of meeting him for the first time. But thankfully, he got a hold of it, got tired of living that way in his life and decided to make some changes.
Most definitely, because like you say, if it was 20 plus years, give or take, connected to something like drugs or alcohol, it's hard to tell what you'll find. You could, like you say, end up dead, end up really sick, like terminally ill again, and still in the hospital, and you're just lucky to find anything, really, if anything. Yeah. It's just really hard to tell. Everybody thinks that if your friends do it, or if somebody you know that is really close to you, if they do it, then it's okay. It's really not. I feel as if not necessarily do it or don't necessarily follow the crowd, but just make sure if you know you're going to do it, try not to get too addicted to it, or just use more of a better mentality, I would think.
Yeah, I would say don't do it, because it's just too risky. But, if you started or if you are doing it, please be mindful that, your life has value, that you are worth something, and that you do not want this to become something that compromises your ability to be successful in your life, and then proceed from there. And if you need help, by all means, reach out to somebody and get help. Right.
You said you and your father both wrote some letters back and forth to each other, like as each other's point of view. Yeah. Is there anything else that you are writing or that you are talking about in your life? Like, do you keep a journal or something, if you don't mind me asking, if that's not too personal?
Yep. I actually do journal, not as frequently, but I am in the process of writing a book. Actually, the first of 2 books to come. The book that I'm writing now is called Uneasy Truths, and that will be released August 15th. And it is more about my life story. And the second book will be called Prodigal Fathers, and it will share the stories of other fathers like mine who have a desire to reconnect with their adult children, though there may have been problems, when the child was smaller.
Right.
So, we want to help fathers reconnect. In fact, we also do public talks about our relationship. And the next one is June 21st, which is Father's Day at Unity of Washington, D.C., from 1 to 3. So by all means, the listening audience is welcome to come out and enjoy that with us as we celebrate what we're calling fatherhood, not fatherhood. So it's about seeing the goodness in every father, regardless of the kind of person they've been or the kind of father they've been, but recognizing them and celebrating them as human beings and being grateful for the life that you have, regardless of how that relationship has turned out. So,
Do you have any social media or networks, since everybody is going to the social media network technology aspect of things? Do you have anything where if people would like to know more information about you and your father's story, do you have anything that they can either follow you at or like you on?
sure. We have a website, www.breakingtheshell.net. And we're also on Facebook. It's facebook.com/breakingtheshell, all one word. And you can find more about our story there. There's a video blog on the website of several days before surgery. I documented, and I actually have footage that needs to be put up about the surgery and in recovery and post the procedure. But we are keeping our community. We have a large and supportive community, and we keep them informed of our journey and continue to ask for their prayers and support along the way.
Most definitely. I really can connect to your story. I really have so many more questions. Like, I really wish we could continue this conversation and everything. Another thing I'd like to ask you, if you don't mind going back to about the organ transplant. Where exactly did you go to, or did you and your father have to meet somewhere to actually go through the procedure, or did you do a separate part and then he go somewhere else, or how did that work?
That's an excellent question. So his doctors were all in New York City, and I initially got tested here. So you're able to be tested in your home city for compatibility. So the hospital that he was going to sent me a testing kit, and my doctor drew the blood the way it needed to be drawn and sent it back. And then we got a call that everything was great and it was time to go to the next level. Ultimately, though, I did have to travel to New York a couple of times. I had to meet with, it's a very intense and great process that you go through. You have to meet with financial coordinators to make sure your finances are in order. You have to meet with a social worker to make sure that your expectations about the process are managed, because while we had a great story and everything turned out well, what if I had died during the procedure, or he had died during the procedure, or something like that. So they make sure that you're prepared to deal with all that stuff. And then we had to meet with the surgeons to talk about the procedure and what kind of effect it was going to have on our bodies and what the recovery process would look like. So there's a very big process that you go through, and it just worked out great. I would encourage everybody listening to consider organ donation, either on your driver's license, or if you want to become a living donor. There are many resources to look up to figure out how to do that.
Okay. I hate to cut it short, but it seems like we're slowly but surely running out of time. Is there any final comments you would like to tell the audience about your organ transplant or your Breaking the Shell project or anything?
Yep, just visit our website for more information. Consider becoming an organ donor, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you, have FaceTime with you, Mike, and your class here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I really appreciate all you have done for your dad, us, and everybody in the world, knowing about organ transplant and the process through going to find your bio dad if you don't know your bio dad growing up. Especially with all the homeless children here in America, it seems like.
Thank you.
Thank you.